My ex-girlfriend is there. I have to go pick her up.
My husband exclaimed as he stared at a woman as if he were being drawn to her. I was stunned and speechless at his sudden outburst. This incident happened while we were on our way to the wedding venue in a car, on our wedding day. He slammed on the brakes, bringing the car to a stop, and seemed to be observing the situation for a while. The woman my husband was looking at was carrying a heavy load. Then, all of a sudden, he started panicking and said to me,
"You're in the way. Get out of the car quickly."
My name is Emily. I am a 29-year-old nurse. I met my husband, Steve, when we were introduced by a mutual friend, and we are the same age. I've been so busy with my job that I barely have time for dating. However, I do think about getting married if I find the right person, I once confided in a friend. To which she replied, "I know just the right guy for you. I'll introduce you to." She went out of her way to set up a meeting for us. At that time, I was working full throttle as a nurse. I was hoping to find a man who could support and stand beside me in my career. Steve turned out to be exactly the kind of man I had hoped for. He took great pride in his work and had this confident, dedicated approach towards everything. I rarely had conversations outside of work, especially with men. Although I was nervous, Steve showed understanding and concern by saying, "Nursing must be really challenging, especially nowadays. I think healthcare professionals face both mental and physical challenges." I felt deeply comforted by his words. I responded, "Yes, it is challenging. But seeing you, Steve, makes me feel like I need to step up my game." He looked a little embarrassed when I said that. I was attracted to Steve's easygoing nature. He wasn't just all seriousness. Things progressed smoothly between us, and we decided to get married. I felt we could go through life supporting and understanding each other without changing our lifestyles. I loved my job, so even after getting married, it felt natural for me to continue working. However, one day, Steve approached me with a rather stern look on his face. "We need to talk," he began. Concerned I might have done something wrong, I started to replay recent events in my mind. Then, out of the blue, he said, "Can you quit your job?" Shocked, I replied, "Why? I love my job. Have I done something that bothers you?" He responded in a commanding tone, "Do you know how it looks when my wife works harder than me? From now on, you quit your job and focus entirely on the household chores, and I'll provide for us. Got it?" Frankly, I was taken aback. I had never seen this side of Steve before. I argued, "If you wanted a stay-at-home wife, you should have mentioned it before we got married." Steve mumbled, "I've never met someone so dedicated to their job. I thought if we got married, you'd handle household chores perfectly. I'm not good at it." Frustrated, I snapped, "Why not hire a housekeeper? Or are you just looking for a free perfect maid?" He replied, "Don't be silly. If I didn't enjoy being with you, I wouldn't have married you in the first place." Despite my reservations, considering our newlywed status and my feelings for Steve, I thought maybe I should try harder. After some thought, I said, "If that's your concern, I'll try to do better with the household chores. But I don't plan to quit my job. At least wait until your salary alone can support the two of us." Regardless, I continued working. My husband, seemingly very angry, not only refused to do household chores but also started to constantly monitor everything I did. Naturally, my burden just kept increasing. There were days when I had to cut corners on the housework while juggling my job. He would point out even the smallest things I might have missed in the chores. One day, fed up, I told him, "I get it, you're not into household chores. But it'd be great if you could help a little since we're both working." Steve sighed and responded, "How many times do I have to tell you I'm not good at it? You're the one finding it hard to balance work and home. Why not just quit your job?" I shot back, "When will you get it? We can't survive on your salary alone." Even when I talk back to him, it's like talking to a brick wall. As soon as the conversation turns to his earnings, he quickly changes the subject. One day he remarked, "You know, Amanda was perfect at these chores. I'm surprised there's such a difference between two women. If you can't handle housework, then as a woman, you're failing." I did marry you, after all, so be grateful. Amanda refers to the girlfriend my husband was dating before he met me. Even though we are married, I couldn't help but feel angry at being compared to his ex-girlfriend. Yet, I couldn't deny that there was some truth in what he said. While I'm reasonably trusted at work, I lack allure as a woman. I was aware that it wasn't just because I am a married woman, I knew I lacked femininity. I understood that, but being told so by my husband made me want to prove him wrong. However, the reality is that we couldn't live on my husband's income alone. So, I continued to work as usual, but made an effort to handle household chores more efficiently. My husband was always on the lookout for any chores I might have missed, but he eventually had nothing to complain about since I did everything perfectly. That's how peace finally came to our home. After a while, we had a dinner planned with both our parents. My mother asked about our wedding, and I happily shared my dream.
I've been wanting to have a ceremony for a while now, and I've saved up a bit for it. I want to make it a glamorous event that everyone can enjoy.
My proposal was met with enthusiastic agreement from my mother and mother-in-law, but Steve quickly dismissed my idea, saying, "Do we really need to go all out? Guests aren't really interested in our wedding, they just feel obligated to come and bring money. If they don't come, they worry they'll seem unsympathetic or bad at maintaining relationships. They just come because they feel they have to. Besides, nobody really cares about other people's happiness. Are you sure you're not just influenced by too many dramas?" And he laughed. I had never felt the way Steve described at friends' weddings, and I thought to myself that people like that just shouldn't come. I couldn't help but get angry. Steve went on, "If you have that much saved up, I wish you'd share some of it with me as a reward for my hard work. I want a motorcycle. Let's skip the wedding and honeymoon expenses and use that money for my motorcycle." And then he unilaterally proceeded to plan for a cheap wedding and honeymoon to save money for his motorcycle. When I looked at my parents, their faces were tense. They seemed to be holding back their true feelings. Before I could sort out my feelings, my in-laws spoke up. "Steve, that's enough. You can't just dismiss Emily's wishes and only think about yourself. How can you even think about using the money she saved for our wedding on a motorcycle just for yourself?" My mother-in-law scolded him. My father-in-law added, "People have different views about weddings, so it's inevitable that you and Emily would feel differently. But, you can't just outright deny her opinion, insult her, and then try to take her money. Do you realize how petty you're acting right now? If you continue like this, she might divorce you before you even get married." I told Steve, "I've never once felt unimpressed or uninterested at any wedding I've attended. When I see a bride looking happy, I can't help but tear up. It's a moment when I can really feel that the groom cherishes his wife, and I even thank them for inviting me to their ceremony. I have friends who've planned events at their weddings to entertain the guests, and it was really fun. But I guess you think differently, and that's okay. How about we try to save on the wedding and put that money towards a better honeymoon?" I was glad that my in-laws scolded him, but no matter how much others tried to get through to him, it was meaningless if Steve himself wasn't willing to change. I had just decided to compromise and have the wedding ceremony according to my husband's wishes when he suddenly exclaimed, "No, forget it. I'm gonna make all your dreams come true. Look, the weddings we've attended must have been pretty great, right? So let's make ours even better," he said, suddenly becoming very serious. My husband doesn't like being compared to others. He had even been warned by his parents that if things continued this way, we might end up divorcing, which seemed to have finally made him reflect on his behavior. Seeing this, his parents also seemed relieved and advised us, "We know you're both busy, but please, try to talk things over together as much as possible. It's not good to just push through one person's opinion, but it's also not okay to stay silent and not express your feelings just because the other person isn't listening. Make sure to really share your thoughts with each other." Looking at my husband's changed attitude, my mother-in-law, as if to say this is the way to go, Steve, cheerfully started to suggest, "Steve, that's the spirit. I knew you'd understand if we just talked about it. Look, Emily, how about this adorable dress? It would suit you so well," as she showed me a magazine. "Emily, don't hesitate to speak up. If money becomes an issue, we'll figure it out together, she even offered. I felt it was too much to accept such a generous offer, so I explained that we would plan within our budget, but it was clear that my in-laws were really looking forward to the ceremony, which made me happy. Since we started dating, my in-laws had treated me like their own daughter. And Emily, if Steve ever treats you badly, you tell us right away, okay? They continued to assure me. From that point on, we were able to proceed smoothly with the wedding preparations. My husband was determined, saying, "We're gonna have a wedding like no one has ever seen before." He started researching voraciously, reading books and browsing the internet for ideas. He began suggesting ideas more proactively than I did. Watching him look at other people's weddings and smiling naturally, saying this looks nice, made me feel that the joy of the wedding was really getting through to him, and I felt reassured. We both love diving deep into things once we decide to do them. And during our meetings with the wedding planner, the days flew by. It was a busy time, but our discussions were peaceful, and I found those days enjoyable. Finally, the day of the wedding arrived. It was a sweltering summer day, but the weather was clear, so I felt relieved that the ceremony would go off without a hitch. My husband was also in high spirits, and we both got up early, ready to go. We were on our way to the venue with him driving. If he just drove normally, we would arrive in plenty of time for the ceremony. I was feeling excited, but then suddenly, my husband slammed on the brakes. What happened? I asked in a panic. There wasn't any apparent danger, and I didn't understand why he had stopped so abruptly. He then said, "Let's just pull over here for a sec, and move the car to the side of the road." Suddenly, he exclaimed, "That's it. Amanda's there," and started staring at a woman walking on the sidewalk. His outburst took me by surprise, and I was left in shock. It seemed like Amanda was carrying something heavy, as she occasionally stopped to take a break. From my husband's reaction, I thought he might be considering helping her because she seemed to be struggling. I had mixed feelings watching him stare at her, but when he started driving again, I felt a sense of relief. Honestly, I had been worried that maybe he still had feelings for his ex-girlfriend, as he used to compare me to her and complain about things I did wrong. I was concerned that this might affect our wedding day, but thankfully, that wasn't the case. However, after a few turns, when Amanda was out of sight, my husband pulled over again and looked at me with a smile.
"Get out of the car, you're in the way."
Suddenly, my mind went blank. What? Why? She didn't even ask for a ride. Why are you telling me to get out? Today is our wedding day, isn't it? I asked, and my husband responded, "She's got so much stuff, it's gonna be a hassle. Just do as I say." He then forcefully pulled my arm and dragged me out of the car. "Don't follow me." "Absolutely not," he said and drove off alone. After that, I was so shocked that I couldn't think of anything and just stood there, frozen. I knew I couldn't catch up to the car now, and I couldn't contact anyone since my wallet and cell phone were still inside the car. Gradually, anger started to boil inside me, realizing he might not even want to get married, but I knew I had to contact the venue anyway to avoid causing any trouble, so I started walking there alone. Even if Steve didn't show up, I thought his parents might help me if I explained that all my valuables were still in the car. With that in mind, I quickly reached the venue. Luckily, I had left home early, and the distance wasn't too great, so I managed to arrive on time. However, honestly, I was exhausted from walking under the scorching sun without even a parasol. As I entered the building, intending to take a break, there was my husband, looking utterly dejected. I understood that he, traveling by car, would arrive before me, walking. But why was he here when he was supposed to meet Amanda? As I was wondering about this, my mother-in-law, who seemed to have noticed me, rushed over in a panic. "Emily. My stupid son, I'm really sorry about him. It was hot outside, wasn't it? Are you okay? Here, drink this," she said, handing me a bottle of water. After thanking her and taking the water, I asked my husband, "Hey, what happened to Amanda?" He bluntly responded, "Oh, she said she didn't need help and ran off. Some guy I didn't know protected her and took her away. So, I had no choice but to come here." He looked as if his mind was somewhere else. Noticing my suspicion, my in-laws harshly reprimanded him, saying things like, "We told you this before, but we can't believe you'd abandon your bride on your wedding day to talk to an ex-girlfriend. What were you thinking? We know you might not be forgiven, but you better apologize sincerely." My husband was completely disheartened. Then, my mother-in-law sadly shared, "Actually, we were too excited and came here way before you two were supposed to arrive. But when only Steve showed up, we grilled him, asking where is Emily, and that's when we understood the situation. I then asked my husband, after Amanda turned you down, why didn't you come back for me? He explained she got really mad, called me a good-for-nothing, and I just lost all my will to do anything. I figured you'd eventually come to the venue, so I thought I'd just wait for you here." Looking closely, I could see his cheek was red and swollen, which I later found out was because his father couldn't hold back and had punched him. Neither of us could shift our mood towards the wedding now, and just then, Amanda arrived. Next to her was an unfamiliar man, whom she introduced as her husband. Amanda's husband glared at Steve. "So, you tried to forcefully get a clearly unwilling woman into your car, but ran away the moment you saw another man's face?" I heard everything from Amanda. "You've been stalking her even after breaking up, right? And today, on the day of your own wedding, you leave your bride and hit on your ex? That's just low," he exclaimed angrily. After giving Steve a scornful look, Amanda turned to me and said, "We did date, that's true. But we've broken up, and I have no interest in him anymore. I never imagined he'd leave his bride on their wedding day to come talk to me. I'm really sorry." I hurriedly stopped her as she apologized with a gloomy expression.
No way! No matter how you look at it, this person is the one at fault. Please, don't apologize.
At the sound of my voice, Amanda seemed relieved and took a deep breath. Then, as her husband lost his target for his anger, he glared at me and started to cry.
If you had just stopped me more, none of this would have happened. Don't you feel any pain in your heart seeing me being blamed like this?
As I was about to retort, dumbfounded, that it serves him right, Amanda and her husband started berating mine. Amanda angrily said, "Enough is enough. I kept quiet before because I was the only one being troubled, but now you've gone and bothered my precious husband, and I won't forgive you for that. You're not getting away with this for free." She glared at my husband as she spoke. Her husband also glared at mine with a look of disdain, saying, "Who do you think you are? You've hurt both your own wife and someone else's, and now you're playing the victim?" I then asked Amanda, "Neither you nor your husband did anything wrong. In fact, I should be the one apologizing for all the trouble caused by my husband. From what he said, am I right in assuming that he has been asking you to get back together with him?" After a deep sigh, Amanda nodded vigorously. "Actually, we live quite close to Steve's parents' house. He's ambushed me pretending it was a coincidence several times before, demanding that we get back together. I've been clear but gentle in my refusals. He has a temper and is quick to violence, so I kept it a secret from my husband. But after today, I think I should have told him sooner," she said, her expression on the verge of tears. Her husband added, "I understand why my wife couldn't talk about it before. Seeing how unreasonable this man is, who knows what he might have done if we had just outright denied him. I don't intend to blame my wife." Seeing such a caring couple, I felt that, though they were complete strangers, Amanda was indeed lucky to have married a good man. I apologized to Amanda. "I'm so sorry for causing you trouble. When he said he was busy with work late into the night, he was actually going to your place, wasn't he? I'm really, really sorry." Then, turning to my still unsatisfied-looking husband, I scolded, "You need to apologize too. You've caused trouble for so many people, what are you going to do about it?" He only frowned in response. But Amanda's husband, losing his patience, interrupted.
An apology would be fine. With that look on his face, I doubt he's truly remorseful anyway. In any case, I don't want anything to do with you. Promise me you'll never approach my wife again,"
he yelled, and my husband, face red, stepped forward towards him.
"I was with Amanda before she met you. That means I understand her better than you do. I want to get back together with her. If you're lonely being divorced and single, I'm willing to swap wives with you. Let's do that. My wife is a hard worker, so she's got money.
My husband declared, as if it were a brilliant idea. At his complete lack of understanding, not just I, but also Amanda and her husband were left speechless. Watching him excitedly talk about the day we'd get divorced and the day he'd register his marriage with Amanda, I made up my mind. Anyway, let's call off the wedding. I told my husband just that, and I apologized to my in-laws.
I'm sorry. I know you were all looking forward to today, but as you can see, I cannot marry your son. I'm grateful for all you've done for me until now, but I'm sorry it had to come to this.
With that, my in-laws, tearfully, apologized. Emily, you've done nothing wrong, and we think you're making the right choice. Our son is really an idiot. We're sorry for all the trouble he's caused. Looking around calmly, I noticed numerous venue staff members watching us. The time was such that relatives and friends were due to arrive soon. Feeling it would be rude to cancel at this late stage, I spoke to the staff and decided to change the event from a wedding to a dinner party, and made it clear we wouldn't be accepting any gifts. The venue staff, accustomed to such dramas, gave my husband disapproving looks but efficiently arranged the dinner party, leaving me feeling extremely grateful. My husband, oblivious to everything else, kept dreaming about his new life with Amanda, happily planning out loud what they would do together. Even in the face of their disgusted looks. Seeing his attitude, I was just dumbfounded. Having finished my explanation, I returned to my husband and told him on the spot that I agreed to a divorce. I knew this already, but my husband didn't seem the least bit sad. He accepted it with great joy. Just at that moment, the attendees started to gather one after another. My parents, in-laws, and I had no choice but to keep apologizing to the attendees, encouraging them to at least enjoy the meal, even though we were making a painful excuse. I had no intention whatsoever of telling the guests this ridiculous story, but my husband was happily announcing to everyone that the wedding was cancelled and that he was divorcing me. People who arrived on time were in an uproar over the sudden cancellation of the wedding. Moreover, even when confronted by the guests, my husband kept a calm face and continued to spout his wild fantasies, saying things like he had found his true love and was going to marry the person he truly loved.
Amanda, this guy is just beyond reason at this point. Please, take your husband and get out of here now.
Gently pulling Amanda's arm, I handed her over to a staff member, and the two of them quickly left through the back exit. Just when I thought things might finally settle down, my husband, who realized she was gone, flew into a rage. Seeing the two of them walking away outside the window, he hurriedly started chasing after them.
Amanda! Wait, come back home with me, not with that guy. Enough is enough, what the hell is wrong with you? Stay away from Amanda, just disappear.
As he ran out of the venue, Amanda's husband easily stopped him. Then, my father and father-in-law, who had followed behind, grabbed him and dragged him back inside the venue. I followed them, bowing my head numerous times, apologizing to Amanda and her husband as they left. The attendees, who had witnessed the whole ordeal from inside, were utterly dismayed, leaving the venue while tossing remarks like that was just low at my husband. In the end, the place was almost empty. I felt sorry, but there was also a part of me that felt it couldn't be helped since my husband's rampage couldn't be stopped. In the end, only my friends, my parents, and my in-laws stayed. They all expressed their concern for me, helping me regain some composure. With the mood still heavy, I finished cleaning up. Just then, my husband, saying cleaning's done, we're good now, right? So, I'm gonna go to Amanda's house, tried to leave the venue. My crying in-laws forcefully put him in the car and took him home. A few days later, with my in-laws present, I got my husband to sign the divorce papers, and we were officially divorced. I either had his stuff picked up by my in-laws or sent to him via mail. It was a hectic few days, but it finally came to an end. One day, I decided to take a trip to a suburban town for a change of pace. While at a shopping mall, I unexpectedly ran into Amanda and her husband. Worried about how they had been since our last encounter, I asked about their well-being, and they shared their story. Apparently, my ex-husband had not changed his ways. He had been stalking Amanda, waiting at places she visited, and even going as far as following her to her home and workplace. He had been insisting, "We're still in love, right? You were just playing hard to get that time, weren't you?" Talking only about what suited him and constantly asking to get back together. Finally, Amanda consulted the police and began the process of filing a complaint against him. Believing he had done nothing wrong, my ex-husband continued his delusional talk in front of the police, which led to him being deemed a dangerous individual. Appropriate measures were promptly taken, and a restraining order was issued against him, preventing him from approaching Amanda. Surprisingly, the moment the restraining order was issued, my ex-husband lost his momentum. It was only after legal measures were taken that he finally realized Amanda truly despised him. Since then, he stopped approaching Amanda and her surroundings. Though I no longer cared about him, as long as he wasn't causing any more trouble for Amanda and her husband, I felt that was for the best. Amanda continued, "Actually, we are moving soon, close to my husband's hometown. We came here today to buy some cleaning supplies for the move. Emily, please take care of yourself." As I repeatedly apologized and saw them off, the two of them left with smiles on their faces. Watching their backs as they left, I silently wished for their happiness from the shadows. That settles that. Just as I was thinking of deleting my ex-husband's contact information, I couldn't believe it, he called. I had kept his number just in case there were issues with dividing our assets, but I never imagined he'd actually call. I really didn't want to answer, but I had just met with Amanda and her husband. Somewhat worried, I answered, and my ex-husband started talking. "Can we just pretend the divorce didn't happen? I tried living alone, and I realized how important you are to me. Hey, can we give it another shot and live together, helping each other out?" I took a good dozen seconds to process what he was saying, and then I responded as calmly as I could. "This has got to be a joke. We're strangers now. No matter what you say, I'm not interested in remarrying you. Please, don't ever contact me again." I hung up, set his number to block, and rejected his multiple incoming calls. He was making a fuss on the other end of the line until the very end, but I felt completely relieved, finally saying goodbye for good. He seemed to try calling from different numbers for a while, but I kept ignoring him, and once I got a new cell phone and changed my number, things finally became peaceful. I had moved out of our house, so there were no issues even if he tried something unexpected, and he had no way to contact me. Amanda and her husband had moved long ago, and even if he showed up at my parents' house, they'd be furious and send him away. Most importantly, after everything that happened at the wedding, my ex-in-laws decided to sell the house. This house is close to Amanda's parents. "We thought we might as well sell it now," they said, tears in their eyes. It was hard to see them like that, but I just hope they live happily and keep their distance from my ex-husband. Without a home to return to, he must be wandering around alone by now. He's isolated, with nobody knowing where he is, and rumors are spreading among his friends and workplace because of the scene he caused at the wedding. Especially according to a friend who works at the same company as him, it seems like he's become quite the outcast there. It's truly what he deserves. I hope he reflects on his actions from the bottom of his heart. As for me, I've started a new life from scratch in a new place. A new job opportunity at a hospital came up just in time, and I took it. I can balance work and household chores at my current job, which makes me very happy. I'm thrilled to be back in a meaningful job, learning new things every day in this new environment. I've also built good relationships with my colleagues, which makes my days fulfilling. Although I'm divorced, I'm undoubtedly happier now than when I was living with my ex-husband. It's made me realize once again just how much I love my job. All I hope for now is for these peaceful days to continue.